It really started when I was 5 years old because that's when I fell in love with the game of basketball. And I'm incredibly grateful to not only have made a living, but built an extraordinary life around something I'm super passionate about.
We all talk about peak performance, but very few people are living it. Stein Jr. spent years behind the curtain coaching the highest performers on the planet. Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, Kobe Bryant. He knows what it takes to win. And now he teaches audiences how to use the same strategies in business that elite athletes use to perform at a world-class level. What he shares in this episode, it's not theory, it's practice.
So the first is never getting bored with the basics. Confidence is built from competence, and competence is built from actually doing the thing. What I tell folks is when you wake up every morning, don't focus on the wall, focus on the bricks. That's where the power is. You just need to figure out what are your bricks to reaching that revenue goal and make sure you're laying a few of them every single day.
How do high performers push through when the motivation fades and they're just not feeling it?
Motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a decision. Discipline is making a decision in the moment that your future self will thank you for. So to me, my superpower has always been I care. And I know for a fact that caring matters. Don't worry about what just happened. Refocus your lens on the next play and what's right in front of you.
This isn't just a conversation. It's a blueprint for how to show up on your court, in your business, and in your life. You'll walk away with one question stuck in your head. Am I doing the basics brilliantly?
Today on XFactor Marketing, we're diving deep into the power of performance, perseverance, and personal branding. I'm thrilled to welcome a guest who has spent his life coaching the top 1%. From elite athletes to business leaders, he understands what it really takes to unlock potential. Stein Jr. is a renowned keynote speaker, performance coach, and author of Raise Your Game and Sustain Your Game. His journey from the hardwood to the boardroom is filled with insights that will inspire you to think bigger, work smarter, and show up your best self every single day. We're going to explore how the same mindset and habits that build championship athletes can be applied to build your brand and business. So whether you're an agent growing your career, a leader scaling a team, or someone just looking to level up, you're in the right place. Alan, welcome to the pod.
Oh, I'm so excited to be with you, Wendy. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be a lot of fun. I love the mind of an athlete, and it translates so incredibly well to just the mind of an entrepreneur. So let's jump in with a little bit about your story. You've worked with legends like Kobe Bryant and Kevin Durant. What does that path look like to becoming a sought after performance coach?
Well, it really started when I was 5 years old because that's when I fell in love with the game of basketball. And I'm so grateful that, 4.5 decades later, basketball is still a major passion of my life. And I share that because I've been very fortunate and I'm incredibly grateful to not only have made a living, but built an extraordinary life around something I'm super passionate about. I spent the first portion of my career as a very, very dedicated player. Upon finishing college, I played basketball at Elon University down in North Carolina. I then became an equally dedicated performance coach. And then since the current iteration is I'm now a very dedicated keynote speaker and author. But the main red thread that ties all of those together is my passion for basketball, but more importantly, my passion for what it takes to perform at a world-class level, regardless of industry.
All right. So along that journey, you talk about the importance of habits a lot today. So when you think about, developing those habits along each of the big stages that you've sort of progressed through, what is a consistent habit that you've pulled from kind of stage to stage in each step of that journey?
Well, there's really three. There's probably a baker's dozen if I would outline them all, but there's three traits and habits and mindsets, if you will, that I've noticed have the highest utility. They apply to basketball, they apply to business, they apply to everything in between. And those habits are focusing on the basics and really having a strong appreciation for the fundamentals, never trying to skip steps, but working towards mastery primarily during the unseen hours of whatever your craft requires. So the first is never getting bored with the basics. And that was actually something I learned firsthand from Kobe Bryant back in 2007 when I had a chance to meet him for the first time. The second trait or approach, if you will, is learning how to earn your confidence by putting in the repetitions, by doing the work during the unseen hours, but always blending that confidence with humility, because humility is what allows you to stay open to coaching. Humility is what allows you to stay open to feedback. And most importantly, humility is what allows you to know that no matter how good or accomplished you are, you can still get better. You don't use the outside world as your measuring stick. You know that you can still improve. And then the third trait or approach is being relentless about the process. You know, the highest performers I've had a chance to work with are definitely goal oriented, and they have a very crystal clear vision of where they're trying to go and who they're trying to become. And they use that North Star to provide direction and clarity, but they don't focus on the goal. They focus on what's right in front of them. They focus on the process. They wake up every single day asking themselves, what can I do today to inch myself just a little bit closer to that goal or that North Star? And whatever the answer is, that's what they focus on. And it's been my firsthand experience as a player, as a coach, now as a business owner, and even as a parent, that when I dial into those three, when I'm relentlessly focused on the fundamentals, I earn my confidence, but I remain humble and I stay obsessed with the process. When I do those three things, I tend to perform at a pretty high level.
I love it. I love it. That is so, so strong. And I think that immediate action and focusing on like, what do I need today? Because I think we often get so lost in, well, I have this big goal. Or for us talking a lot in the real estate industry, our agents tend to think about from a financial perspective, I want to earn X amount of dollars this year. And they forget, what do I need to do today in order to have that outcome, for the year?
Absolutely. And I love that they have that goal. And what I would encourage them to do is to crystallize that goal. And most importantly, I hope that goal scares them a little bit. I hope it's a little bit of a stretch. I don't want them to aim low and hit. I'd rather them aim really high, maybe fall a little bit short, but still surpass anything else that you would have achieved. But once they've crystallized that revenue goal, then I want them to start working backwards from there. And I want them to figure out, what are the handful of KPIs or building blocks that will give me the best chance to reach that goal? Like, what are the things that I need to focus on? And obviously, the real estate business at its heart is a relationship business. It's a people business. Certainly, there are components of AI and tech that are invaluable to making those things happen. But at the end of the day, it's about connecting with other human beings. And you need to do the math to work backwards to say, how many homes do I need to show? And how many of those do I need to close? And in order to show that many homes, how many relationships do I need to make? Well, in order to make all those relationships, how do I need to grow my network? Do I need to consistently content market myself so that I'm attracting more people, and figure all of those things out, and then wake up every day and you will have whittled it down and funneled it down to the handful of things that you need to check off that day that will lead you to that path. And the best analogy I can think of is if you were ever tasked with building a brick wall, you don't really need to focus on the wall. What you need to focus on is laying every brick with care and precision. And if you can consistently lay every brick where it needs to go, inevitably the wall will take care of itself. And what I tell folks is, when you wake up every morning, don't focus on the wall, focus on the bricks. That's where the power is. So everyone listening and watching right now, you just need to figure out, what are your bricks to reaching that revenue goal, and make sure you're laying a few of them every single day.
Don't focus on the wall, focus on the bricks. Yes, love it. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about self-doubt and imposter syndrome, because I'm sure your athletes and clients, deal with that. How do you get past that? Have you dealt with that? How do you get past that?
Oh, absolutely. Of course. I think anyone that's being honest should be able to own up to the fact that at some point we've all experienced that. And first and foremost, my answer to almost everything in that realm is to give yourself some grace and space to be human. Don't be highly critical. When you're having some of these thoughts, when you feel your confidence is rattled, if you're feeling some imposter syndrome, give yourself some grace and give yourself permission to be human. We've all experienced that, even the highest performers in any area of life. But ultimately, what we're talking about is how do we build confidence, unshakable confidence. And it's been my experience, there's a handful of things that we can proactively do to increase our confidence. The first is we have to keep the promises we make to ourselves. If you tell yourself that tomorrow morning you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. to train for your next Ironman, and you do wake up at 6, you will start to build your confidence. However, if you wake up tomorrow morning and it's a little bit rainy out and you hit the snooze button and you pull the covers over your head and you break that promise to yourself, you'll start to erode some of your confidence. So we need to make sure we're honoring our word to ourselves. The next thing we need to do to build confidence comes through demonstrated performance. And a lot of that performance happens during the unseen hours. Confidence is built from competence, and competence is built from actually doing the thing. So we need to get in the reps. We need to put in the work. We need to do the practice. We need to do the workouts. And a lot of times that part of the work will be messy. We will make mistakes, and that's okay. But the more we can devote to that, getting in the reps, the better we'll be. The reason Stephen Curry is not only one of the best shooters in the history of the game of basketball, but arguably one of the most confident, is because he has made millions and millions of shots during the unseen hours when no one else is watching. He has watched that ball go through the hoop over and over and over. So when the cameras are rolling, the cheerleaders are dancing, and the spotlight is on, he knows he has had the demonstrated performance during the unseen hours to earn the right for that to happen. And then lastly, our confidence is also dependent upon that little voice inside our heads, our self-talk and our self-narrative. And while I do believe we should all hold ourselves to really high standards of excellence, we also have to learn how to talk to ourselves in a very empathetic and compassionate way. We need to learn to talk to ourselves the same way we would talk to a friend or a loved one. It's been my personal experience, as well as the experience of a lot of high performers, is we can often be very judgmental and very critical. We can tend to beat ourselves up. And when we do that, we start to lower our self-belief and confidence. Now, again, this is not about sugarcoating the truth or reality, and this is definitely not about lowering standards, but it's about being kind to yourself and compassionate. I know you and I are just now getting acquainted, but assuming we develop a friendship, if you ever called me and told me that you had had a really hard day or that something didn't go well for you, the last thing I would do would be to be critical and to pile on judgment and to make you feel worse. Instead, I'd put my arm around you and say, today wasn't your best day, but I know you're capable of better. And tomorrow's another chance for you to succeed. And I would talk to you in an empowering, compassionate way. And we just have to learn to talk to ourselves that way. And if you can do those three things fairly consistently, you'll slowly see your confidence start to build.
I love it. I love it. Just that is remarkable. I mean, just the showing up and keeping your word to yourself is so powerful for building confidence and having grace with yourself. Like the self-talk, how we talk to ourselves, we'd never talk to other people. And we talk to ourselves so harshly with our inside voices, and being able to give ourselves a little bit of grace and kindness
And
goes
not only
a
that,
long way.
I would never let someone talk to me that way.
Yes, yes.
I have a standard. I would never let someone talk to me the way that I used to talk to myself. So yeah, a lot of these things that come from within, we just have to make sure that we're very careful with how we speak to ourselves.
Yes, yes. So that was great insight, but let's talk a little bit about motivation, right? So, we build confidence. I think those were three, great strategies. But motivation fades and we don't always feel motivated. So we push ourselves to keep our word to ourselves and to do those things. But how do high performers, push through when like the motivation fades and they're just not feeling it?
Well, I'm so glad you went in this direction, and I'm so glad that you brought this up. Motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a decision.
Oh, I love it. I'm glad that's the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motivation will ebb and flow just like any other feeling that
Can we just say that again? So motivation is a feeling, discipline is a decision.
Absolutely. You said it perfectly. You can tweet that later, or maybe we'll have some t-shirts made.
That's a t-shirt for sure.
Yeah, motivation is fleeting just like any other feeling. Now, there are some people, and I would imagine you and I are in that club, that tend to feel a little more motivated more often than most people. It's just kind of in our wiring. But I don't know about you, but I certainly know I don't feel motivated 100% of the time. And it's when I can exercise my discipline muscle when I'm not feeling motivated that's so important. Now, I will say, at any time you are feeling motivated or inspired, do everything you can to ride that wave.
Right,
That's like
yes.
getting a little extra, an extra boost of juice, and we want to use that. But what's most important is discipline. And discipline is always a decision that we make in the moment. It's been my experience that a lot of people make the mistake of thinking discipline is something that's preset, that it's in our genetic code or it's in our DNA.
Somehow we were born with it, right?
Exactly. And I know that because they say things like, well, Alan, I'm just not that disciplined of a person. And I just remind them that that's simply a story you've been telling yourself. Now, you may have historically a lot of evidence to back that up because previously you've chosen not to make very many disciplined decisions. So now you identify as someone who's not very disciplined, but you can change that with the very next decision that you have to make. Because every single decision we make in our lives, from whether or not what we're going to eat for lunch to whether or not we work out to who we follow on Instagram, you always have an opportunity to make a more disciplined decision. And when you can make that decision in the moment and you start stacking disciplined decisions and start building up some momentum in the other direction, then you'll start to identify as a disciplined person. And let me be crystal clear on what discipline actually is. Discipline is making a decision in the moment that most aligns with who you're trying to become. It's making a decision in the moment that is most aligned with the goals that you set. It's making a decision in the moment that your future self will thank you for and be appreciative of and be grateful for. So that's really all that it is. So what you have to ask yourself consistently is, am I making a decision on what I want most or what I want in this moment? Because once again, going back to what we said before, motivation is a feeling. And one of the biggest mistakes mediocre performers make is they make decisions based on how they feel, not based on their standard. And there's a saying that I had heard from Nick Saban, the Hall of Fame football coach from Alabama. He has a saying that says standards over feelings, which means when it comes to our behavior and our choices and our decision making, we need to make our decisions based on our standard of excellence, not how we feel in the moment. We need to make decisions based on our core values, not on our mood. And every single emotion, in my opinion, is valid and is okay. There's nothing wrong with feeling unmotivated or feeling angry or feeling frustrated, but we're not allowed to behave that way. And we're not allowed that to hijack our decision-making process because our emotions are designed to inform us. They are not designed to direct us. So for me, at this point in my life, I've gotten really good at, regardless of how I feel, I make decisions that are disciplined and most in alignment with where I'm trying to go.
I love it. Oh, there's so much to unpack there. When I was training for Ironman, I had 4 words that was sort of my mantra. And it was focus, discipline, commitment, and fun. And so when I was grinding out a bike, right, like mile 80 on a training ride, that's what I would say going up a hill. Focus, discipline, commitment, fun. And I would keep like running. When I was on a long run, like those were the words that I would say. And it very much was in alignment with what you were just describing. How is it different teaching? Because you've worked with all age groups. So how is it different teaching, say, teenagers or college age kids, some of what you were just describing around controlling your emotions and aligning your emotions with your actions, and then working with sort of adult elite athletes and aligning their emotions and their actions?
Well, when it comes to teenagers, and I've got great experience with this, not only did I spend 20 years working in the youth and high school basketball space, but I actually am the father of three teenagers at present. I have
All right.
15-year-old twin sons and a 13-year-old daughter. And when it comes to my own children, I do the best I can, first of all, to just plant seeds. And I've been planting seeds with them ever since they were so small that they might not have consciously even understood what I was planting. And that's because I believe from a leadership standpoint that most things are caught, not taught. And I believe we should be trying to model the behavior that we want to see in others. So for me, I don't give my kids a keynote speech on the importance of being respectful. Instead, I just live my life in a manner that they see me being respectful to everyone and everything I come in contact with. So it's not about perfection. And believe me, I have said and done some boneheaded things in front of my children, but most of the time, I am incredibly consistent about living out those values so that I can model them. The second is I speak very openly and honestly and directly with my children. I let them know what's acceptable and what's not. And I let them know that I'm going to hold them to an incredibly high standard. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I love them. Lots of times, teenagers in particular can get that kind of twisted. They feel that when someone holds them accountable to a high standard of excellence, they feel like they're being punished. But I make sure to tell them, that is not punishment. I'm doing this because I love you. And we should all want to insulate ourselves with as many people as we can that hold us accountable to an incredibly high level of accountability and a very high standard of excellence. So that's the primary approach I take with my own children. And to be quite honest, it's not that different than I would do with the adults that I work with. Leadership 101. If you're going to expect it of others, you expect it of yourself. Model the behavior you want to see in those around you. Be crystal clear on what's acceptable and what's not, on what winning looks like and what it doesn't, and then hold everyone to an incredibly high standard of excellence. And it's been my experience that high performers want to be around other high performers, want to be around people that are holding themselves to that level. So yeah, there's not a huge difference, at least for me, between kind of those teenage years and adulthood.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. So I call the pod XFactor marketing, and we focus a lot on marketing, and I'm going to ask you some branding questions, but the focus really is on X factor, because I believe we all have an X factor that makes us special and unique. And that's what drives business. What do you think is your X factor?
I care, and caring matters. I care in a variety of capacities. First and foremost, I care about other people. That's the reason I do the work that I do. I had heard a quote many years ago, and I don't know who said this originally, or I'd give him proper attribution, but a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. When you light someone else's candle, yours isn't going to be any dimmer. All you're doing is helping lead the way for someone else. So if you were to ask me at my core what it is that I do for a living, I'm in the business of lighting candles. Now, I happen to do that in the form of giving keynote talks and writing books and putting content on social. But at the end of the day, my purpose and my calling is to light other people's candles. And I care. I care about the work that I do. I care about impacting and influence others. I care about the world around me. I care about other people's opinions and beliefs and feelings. So to me, my superpower has always been I care. And I know for a fact that caring matters.
Caring does matter. That is a tremendous superpower. And we're so glad that you're sharing that with the world. If you could share a daily practice with our listeners and watchers that could help them be more intentional in their work, what would that be?
Carve out a little bit of time each day for some stillness, for some quiet, for some reflection time, something without electronics, something without stimulation. We live in a go, go, go world. And there are other aspects that are part of my daily disciplines. Like I do something every day of my life to move my body, to move my mind, to move my heart, to move my spirit. But with all of this go, 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 and everyone that's always trying to achieve and to perform, like I love that, but we need to carve out some time for some stillness. Now, for some people, that might be in the form of meditation or prayer. It might be in the form of journaling. Whatever form it takes is up to the individual, but just carve out at least 5 to 10 minutes a day where you're just in stillness and you can reflect and you can kind of recharge.
Okay, I love that. Stillness. There is not enough stillness in the world. I've been trying lately to, whenever I'm driving, to not have any, like not the radio, not the podcast, like just at least just stillness in the car. And it makes a difference.
It does.
So
Well,
yeah.
you know what I find hilarious, and I certainly hope that this doesn't sound inappropriate, and I don't actually have the stats on it, but I had heard something the other day that only a small percentage of people these days even go to the bathroom without having their phone with them, without having some type of external stimulation. So we're plugged in all of the time, and we just need to find some quiet periods, some times where we can just take a breath. And I'm a huge fan, obviously, of listening and watching to podcasts. I love your show, and I believe in reading and pouring into myself. But we have to balance that out with just some stillness and some quiet time.
Yes. Okay. I want to close by talking a little bit about the books. So the first book was Raise Your Game. And then very appropriately, the follow-up book is Sustain Your Game. So tell us just a little bit about both of them.
And I've actually got a third book that's coming out this November, and it's called Next Play, which is a concept that I talk about a lot on stage and on page. But yeah, the first book that I wrote was in 2019, Raise Your Game, High Performance Secrets from the Best of the Best. And it really unpacks a lot of the things that you and I have been discussing today. You know, it shares all of the things that we need to do to level up and be our best selves consistently. Then the follow-up, Sustain Your Game, as the title alludes, is not that we're ever done climbing, and not that we've ever reached the peak, and not that we've ever gone all the way up to the penthouse. We're always going to be on that journey. But once we've reached a certain level of expertise and excellence, how do we sustain excellence for long periods of time and avoid getting burnt out, avoid stagnating, and avoid the daily stresses we all deal with? So the second book was not to imply that we ever reach the summit, but it's how do you sustain excellence for long periods of time? And then a thread that kind of ties both of those together is a framework that I use in everything I preach and teach, and that is the concept of focusing on the next play. Don't worry about what just happened. Refocus your lens on the next play and what's right in front of you. And I just finished writing that book, just finished recording the audiobook, and I'm so excited for it to drop this November.
Oh, that's awesome. Looking forward to it. Well, Alan, I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for being here with us today. It has really been a treat getting to chat with you.
Oh, this was so much fun. And certainly if anyone watching or listening, if I can be of service, or you want to keep this conversation going, or you have a question you want to ask, I'm very easily found and very accessible on social media. I'm just at Alan Stein Jr. and my website is alansteinjr.com. Definitely reach out and we'll keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Thank you so much.